Hello and welcome to Let's Start Cooking. On today we're going to do a classic recipe that's probably well over 200 years. I know the first recorded recipe was like in 1840 something. And it's real simple. It's stuffed peppers. And we're going to start out, we're going to take a 92% lean ground beef. And the reason that we're using this is we're going to add a lot of moisture to this and we don't want to add any more liquid than we have to. So what we're going to do is take the ground beef and we're going to take 1 tablespoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of salt. And the reason we're doing this is we're going to tenderize this hamburger. And we're just going to mix this in. And you want to mix this up really well. And you can always substitute. This is a real flexible recipe. You can substitute if you want a plant-based protein instead of ground beef. If you want to go vegetarian, you could substitute ground turkey. You could substitute chicken. But that's all we want to do is we just want to separate this and get this all mashed up. All right? We'll get these off now that we got these all messed up. And we're going to, after we do this, we're going to let this sit for 20 minutes. And this is just going to tenderize this as we let it sit. And while that's sitting, we'll get our peppers ready. We'll just let that sit over there. And we're going to take our peppers, and all we're going to do is we're going to cut these peppers right in half, right down along a seam. And we're going to take everything out. You can take it out with your hands. Just going to rip the inside right out of it. It's a really easy, flexible recipe that you can do this with. I'm using 3 peppers for this recipe, and you can use green pepper, red pepper. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to cut these right down through and clean everything out of them. Make sure everything's cleaned out and they're nice and clean. Right down through. This recipe doesn't take long at all. Get these all cleaned out. All right. Let's slide this over. We'll clean this up then. What we're going to do is we're just going to place these in a glass dish if you have one. If not, you can always place it in something else. And that's all we have to do with these. What we're going to do with this and with the ground meat right now, these are going to go in the oven for 25 minutes at 350 degrees. And all we're doing is we want to soften these up and get these pre-cooked. And the ground beef we're going to let sit for 20 minutes. And we're going to let this tenderize itself. And while that's happening, we're going to clean up our mess and we'll be right back. We are back. We've had our peppers in for about 20-25 minutes. They're nice and soft now. And now we're going to let them cool off a little bit. And now we're going to work with our ground beef. And like we said, we took 92% lean ground beef. And we're going to take 1 medium onion and 3 cloves of garlic. And we're going to start with 3 tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to put that in. And we're going to take our onions. We're going to get them cooking. And we're going to take our garlic, 3 cloves of garlic chopped. And we're going to get this all nice and cooked up. We want these translucent, but we don't want to overcook these, because if you burn garlic, it's going to give a really bad flavor. So we're just going to cook these up for a couple seconds. And you'll know because you'll start to smell them. The aroma starts to come out really strong with these. And once we get these cooked up, and you can smell it. Just want to keep them moving. All right, now that we have this, we're going to add our ground beef. This up, and all we're going to do now is just cook everything together, and we're going to cook this till it's almost done. We're not going to completely cook this through because we're going to be adding a lot more to it. And when you get it to about this point where you can just see a little bit of the meat is done and not quite done, we're going to add our spices. So we're going to add, now you can not add this if you don't want to. This is 1.5 teaspoons of chili powder. Again, you don't have to add it if you don't want to. We're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. And we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of oregano. We're going to mix all that up. Once we get to this part, this is when we're going to add our rice. And we're going to get that mixed in. And this is 1 cup of cooked white rice. And we're just going to add that right in. Now, again, this is a very flexible recipe. Like I said, you can substitute the ground beef for ground turkey, chicken, excuse me. Or you can even substitute a plant-based protein instead of using meat. If you want to go vegetarian, you don't have to use just ground beef, but we're going to get all this mixed in. And once we get this mixed in, now we're going to add 8 ounces of tomato sauce. We're going to get this mixed in. And we're going to carefully try not to make a mess again. And we're just going to mix this up. And it smells so good. I'm going to turn the heat down just a hair. Now, once you get to this point and we have all this incorporated into this, this is when we're going to add our cheese. And we're going to add 3/4 cup of Monterey Jack or Colby or any cheese you really want to use. I'm using a Colby Monterey Jack. And you can use, like I said, you can use anything you want to use, but we're using this right now. We're going to add 3/4 cup. And we're just going to mix this in. We're going to melt this into this. And again, the smells that come off of this. And now that we have all this mixed in, we can turn the heat off. All right. We're going to remove this. Our pan is cooled down enough that what we're going to do is we're going to remove everything, move everything over and give us some room. Because we want to take this off the heat because we don't want to let this sit here because it does have cheese in it. We don't want to burn the cheese to the bottom. And all we're going to do now is we're going to take our peppers. And we're going to stuff this into our peppers. And be careful the cheese running all over on us. Now, you can slice your peppers the way I did, or you can just slice the top off, depending on how much or how many people you're going to serve, or how big of an eater you are. And we're just going to take them like that, and we're going to fill them up. This is a fairly easy recipe. Like I said, this has been around for a long time. This goes back, they've traced this back as far as like over 200 years. And they said it can trace back to South America, Spain. So people have been stuffing peppers for a long time. It's just kind of a lost recipe because not too many people do it anymore. But you're going to stuff these up, get these nice and full. We'll get these stuffed up and we'll be right back. Okay, we got all the peppers stuffed and all we have to do is top it with more cheese and then we're going to put it back in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes. What we're looking for now is just to melt the cheese and get it nice and bubbly. So all you have to do is just take some of your cheese that you had and we're just going to sprinkle it on the top. Depending on how much cheese you like. And like I said, you can use any cheese you want. You can use a pepper jack if you like that. And that's really all that there is to it. And then we're going to put these in the oven for, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes. And we're going to let your cheese melt and get nice and bubbly. But before we do that, I ask that you please like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you stick around to the end, we'll tell you about our next thing that we're going to do next week. All right, we'll put this in the oven and we'll be right back. Please, we are back. It's been 10 minutes. We took them out of the oven. All we had to do was let the cheese melt and everything is done. Now be very careful because obviously this is going to be hot. So we're going to try to get one out. Just going to hold this. See if I can cut this without squishing everything. I think you're really going to enjoy this. It's got a little bit of heat, but very, very subtle. It's not very hot. It's not going to burn you. And like I said, you don't have to have that in there if you don't want to. You can take out the ground beef. You can use a plant-based if you want to. You can use, instead of white rice, you can use quinoa if you want to use that. You can use any other cheeses that you want. It's a very flexible recipe. Now, next Sunday is going to be Father's Day. So for Father's Day, we're going to make a cheesecake. So I hope you can join us on Sunday. I thank you for viewing today with us, and we'll see you then.